Hi, my name is Sarah, and this is Discover Hope Stories of Spoken Hope when the script of your life gets flipped. You know, I've mentioned before that I've had this vision essentially to create this space since October of 2018, which was about 8 months after Sheldon died. But this isn't scripted. It's not planned. It's really me getting to create a space to share my story and then ultimately have others come and share theirs. And so I'm going to just have to let this next part play out because I keep going back and forth on how it would be best told. And we're going to, today I'm going to talk about what happened. And what I have found so interesting about the grief and death world that I experienced was that my experience was, I felt like when I would start talking about what happened, people would get uncomfortable. And that's the worst thing ever. You're wanting to be like, oh my gosh, this happened. And the other person's like, don't tell me what happened. And I don't know. Like I said before, I'm not a grief expert. So kind of in a way, how I've often related it after the fact, right? As I've journeyed through this and found language and ways to describe it, I've often said to people, do you know what I think is so weird? It is so weird that we have two things are going to happen to all of us in our lifetime. We are going to be born and we are going to die. And everyone and anyone can talk about birth. I've been pregnant 4 times. I've had random people rub my belly out of nowhere. God's honest truth. When I was pregnant with Scout, he was born in August, so it was somewhere in the summer. I was ginormous. Somehow I got into bologna sandwiches, Lay's potato chips, and little baby powdered donuts. And I gained I gained 63 pounds. And I'm 5'4", so you can imagine. And Sheldon and I went up to the Mariner game, and this woman, the point being how comfortable we are with pregnancy and birth, this woman was sitting next to me and looked down at my feet because they were so swollen because it was so hot. And she looks at my feet in sandals and goes, oh, honey, your feet are so swollen. Do you want me to rub them for you? And I'm not kidding. I was like, yes. And Sheldon was like, you're disgusting. I'm like, I'm suffering. And I literally put my foot in. I can't believe I'm telling this on this space, but this is real. I put my foot in this woman's lap and she rubbed my feet, and I've never had a better foot rub. So if you're out there, thank you. His name is Scout and he's wonderful. And then, yes, I gave her my other foot when she said, okay, give me the other one. Do you see what I'm saying? But to come near someone when they're hurting, to come near someone when they're grieving, we just don't know what to do and we don't know what to say because we just don't. But if I can have anything to do with it, I hope to get to be a part of changing that or adding more layers, because we've changed a lot since 2018. So what happened? And that's what we're talking about today. But the thing that I keep kind of hiccuping on is I think I'm just going to let myself tell it to you this way because it's important to me that you know these elements. And this kind of goes back to I shared in a previous episode about how, to me, my experience has been, and it didn't just happen, okay? I've been angry and I've gone through all of the craziness of grief and still do at times, sometimes. Anger, disappointment, all of those things. But for me, I have looked back and gone, man, that was really kind of God. That didn't have to happen, you know? And that's just the way I kind of look at life. So in August of 2024, and you guys, you will get to know me over time. I am weird with time and dates. I don't know why, but something will happen and I'll even look at the clock to be like, it's just license plates, the whole thing. So unbeknownst to me, Sheldon would die 6 months later to the day. Obviously, I don't know this is happening. But something very common in our life and still consistently in my life is every school year we would get what we called a word for the year, or like a hashtag, or a direction, a theme, an anthem. And we always did it with a school year. So it was the end of August because it was August 24th. And I got this new journal, and getting a new journal was very like, what do you call it when it's like, it was like this method. It was like a sacred moment, of like what I would write in it and what color Sharpie I would use and all this stuff. And so Sheldon had come home from work. I was sitting at the kitchen table. He's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I just got my new life journal." And he was like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Yeah, I feel like I have my word for the year." Again, think school year because it's starting at September. And I was like, "But babe, I got to tell you this." I said, "I have this really weird feeling." And he goes, "What's going on?" And I said, "I don't know, but kind of as I was like getting my word and kind of like figuring like what is this next 12 months going to look like, I'm like, I had this like really weird feeling." And he's like, "What?" And I said, "I don't know. I don't know what's coming." But I said it like this. I said, "Sheldon, I have the weirdest feeling that something's coming for our family this year." And I said, "Whatever it is," I said, "I know it's not going to knock us out. But whatever it is, it's going to require more of me than I've ever given to our family," which is crazy because in my opinion, even though I was and still am in real estate, I always felt like I was still a stay-at-home mom, which I went to college, I have a degree, and I just have never used it in that way. But anyway, I said, "Yeah, I just feel like it's going to require something of me like never before." And he goes, and so I said, he's like, "So what's your hashtag for the year?" And I said, "Oh, it's not about me 2030. And he goes, "Well, what does that mean?" I said, "Oh, that's when Cash graduates. He'll graduate in 2030. So I kind of feel like the message is like, kind of like, don't worry about you, Sarah, until Cash, like raise your family essentially." And he goes, "Well, why doesn't it say not about us until 2030? Mind you, he died 6 months later to the day. And I go, "Babe, that doesn't even rhyme." And he goes, "Oh, good point." And off we went into a different conversation. And since we were kind of already in that space of like, yeah, like getting senses, because that's just kind of how I'm wired. I'll get these have these really like deep feelings inside, but it feels like almost like a message. And I feel it that way. Like it almost feels like it comes through me. And so I'm like, "I need to talk to you about something." He's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, I don't know how to say it." And he's like, "Well, you can tell me anything." I'm like, "I know." And I was like, "I don't even know why I want to tell you this, Sheldon." But I said, "And it's not like you're doing anything." But at this time, it was August of 2017. And at that time, it seemed like the local church wanted pastors to have like public opinions about things that to me didn't feel like it was like the church's place. And it was like a really kind of intense time to like have these stances on certain things that to me didn't apply. And so I said, "You're not doing this." But I said, this is what I said. I said, "Sheldon, I feel like your world is starting to make my mouth feel really small." And he was like, what are you talking about?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And I said, "You don't do this. I know that I can be me in your world." But I was like, "I don't know." So I do find it so interesting that little did I know that 6 months later, that role that he had in his life wouldn't apply to me as far as an expectation, I guess. So I found that really interesting. And then another thing that happened kind of simultaneously, when we were getting ready to go on the cruise, we were in the process of buying another home. And like I said, I'm in real estate. And so we had an offer, and it was in the inspection process of, excuse me, I need to take a little sip of water. It was during the inspection phase of the process. So anyway, there we were. And one morning, mind you, again, dates and times, it would be exactly 3 weeks later that he died. I woke up one morning and I felt really sick, like sick. And out of nowhere, I kind of felt like this feeling came through of like, we're not supposed to buy that house. And he goes, I said, Sheldon, I don't think we're supposed to buy that house. And he goes, why not? And I'm like, I don't know. I just have a really weird feeling. And he goes, well, you're the realtor. Like, can you get us out of it? And because of how things were, we were able to, we didn't purchase the home. Thank God. And so that night, this is also interesting. We were talking about going on the cruise. And mind you, the reason why we actually went on a cruise, we would go in February, of course, was because my dad had passed away suddenly in September. We had his memorial in November, and Sheldon's parents came up to go to my dad's memorial. So afterwards, we're at the house with Sheldon's parents. This is back in the fall of 2017. And Stephanie, my mother-in-law, says, Sheldon, oh my gosh, you have so much more pictures of Sarah with Sarah and her family, because it was played in like the memorial video. She's like, we need to make more memories. And she said to us, she goes, you guys, if we paid for the cruise, could you guys get yourself to the port, whatever city we, go out of? And we were like, with the kids? And she was like, yes. And we were like, yes, that would be amazing. So that's why we were going on the cruise. So leading up to everything, I had asked my sweet mother-in-law, I just said, Steph, I know this is a Koch family vacation, and like Sheldon and I will pay for everything for my mom, but would you be okay if we invited my mom? Like, she was just, my dad had just passed, and that time of life is so disorienting. And so she was like, of course you can bring your mom. Of course your mom can come. We love your mom, which again, I think is just so amazing that my mom had just gone through this, and there she was with us. So one night we're going to bed, and we were just talking about things, and I just looked up at him and I said, we were talking about my mom coming and whatever. And I just said, I don't want my mom to be alone. And he's like, I know. And he actually said, he goes, I don't think she will be forever. And, when you're like kind of like laying on someone, you're kind of like looking up. And I said, you don't? And he goes, no. And I said, I can't imagine that. I just can't imagine that. I can't imagine losing you. Mind you, this is 3 weeks later, he died. And he said, I know, babe. But if something happened to me and I like reached up to try to cover his mouth, I was like, don't, because like it's in the dark, I'm like, don't even talk like that, Sheldon. And he like, you kind of see each other, and he kind of looks down at me and he goes, no, I'm serious. And he kind of pushes my hand down and he goes, listen to me. He goes, if anything happened to me, and I just kind of looked at him, and then he looked at me sarcastically and he goes, grieve me right, woman. He said, but I'd want you to remarry Sarah. And I was like, Sheldon, stop, knock it off. What are you talking about? And he goes, no, I'm serious. I think this is important. He said, if anything happened to me, grieve me right. He said, I'd want you to remarry again. And he said, you're too fun to live alone. And he said, honestly, I'd want somebody else to be loved by you. And I just paused. And then I say, of course, I don't know anything's going to happen to him. And I said, well, not me, Sheldon. I don't agree. Because if anything happened to me and you remarried, I'd come back and haunt you both. And we just laughed, and went to bed. And little did I know, these are those things that it's like, I kind of can't believe that we were able to have these sort of like conversations, even though we didn't know they were conversations that we were having, So anyway, we end up on February 17th, heading off to Galveston, Texas to head out on a Caribbean cruise. We all met up there. We spent, a full week on the cruise. What I still think is so amazing is that sometimes people go, well, didn't that ruin things? Didn't that this? And I'm like, the doctor said he was going to have that heart attack somewhere. Like it was, and I said, no. Like, since that was the end, I was like, are you kidding? Because ultimately it's like we got to spend 8 days together because, the day before and then the day out of like the going on the cruise. So we spent that entire week. I mean, he had incredible times with each of the kids. He took Cash putt-putt golfing every day. He played a ton of basketball with Rocco. He took Ruby Love to do all sorts of stuff. But one of his last like messages to Ruby Love is she's climbing the rock wall. And there's a moment where, she's 10 years old and she gets like kind of stuck or whatever. And you hear him say, come on, honey, you can do it. Find your next grab. And with Scout was 14 at the time. So he'd take him out at night to like the little comedy clubs or whatever on a cruise. And so and we had every meal together. So it was his mom and dad, sister-in-law, brother, my mom, and then all of us. And we would have all of at least every breakfast and every dinner together. So what ended up happening was it was the last day of the cruise. And because we had spent so much time with our family and the kids, we were like, hey, let's meet up today at 2. Let's lay in the sun and just spend some time together before we get ready for dinner because we were getting off the boat the next day. And so I was laying out waiting for him. And he comes up to me and he's all dressed in his basketball clothes and he's all in a huff and he sits down next to me. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, babe, I made some friends on the basketball court. And I was like, Sheldon, you are 40. Like, what is going on? He goes, no, you don't understand. Sheldon was Portuguese. So he said, you don't understand. They're black and I'm white and they picked me to be their third man. And I was like, you could have led with that. And so anyway, I was like, well, what time's the game? And what time does it start? Like suddenly, like I'm his hype crew. And so he's like, it starts at 3. But then he was like heading off and I'm like, well, where are you going? And he's like, I've got to go rest, babe. And I'm like, naturally. So we didn't do the cell phone package on the cruise. So somehow I was able to find everybody. I was like, you guys, Sheldon's doing a 3-on-3 tournament. And so, honestly, that's another one of those like God gifts, of we all were his mom, his dad, his brother, his sister-in-law, my mom, and the kids. And Rocco was videoing. We were all hyping him up. My mom was the water girl. And it was street ball though. Like this wasn't like I was like, oh, this is kind of next level. But it was hot and it was on that asphalt or whatever the turf is on a cruise. So he played hard. It was 3 games. I mean, it was like 10-minute games in the heat. And at one point I even said, are you okay? Like quietly. And he was like, babe, like woman, So he plays. We were like, oh, way to go. And his number in high school, I don't know, in college, but in high school was number 44. So we're like, let's go 44. And he was from the Ferndale Wildcats. So we're like, let's go Wildcat. Just, I don't know, being the hype crew. So we go down to the room and he was getting ready to take Ruby Love and Cash swimming. The boys were grabbing like their cruise badges to go up and they made some friends. We're going to go play basketball. And Sheldon, so anyway, Ruby Love's in the bathroom and Sheldon's like, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to get sick, which didn't seem weird, and it was hot. And so anyway, he ends up getting down and he's like doing like the child's pose, like that yoga, but like just kind of like catching his breath. And the boys walk by him and Scout says, Dad, you played so good. I love you. And Rocco said, yeah, Dad, you played so good. I got video. I'll show you when I get back. And off they went. And then Sheldon ended up saying to Ruby Love, hurry, honey, I need to use the restroom. So Ruby Love goes, gets her swimsuit on, and I'm laying on the bed, like playing like Wordle, I don't know, some game. And I hear him throw up. And I'm sorry that this might be graphic, but it's like, it's what happened. And I said from the bed, I go, "Hey, are you okay?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm okay." And again, like, it's like he was 40. It's like it was hot. And I mean, these guys were playing. So it's like we had worked out before it's like it just did not seem abnormal. And so anyway, he's like, "I'm just going to get in the shower." And I'm like, "Okay." And so the next thing I know, I hear this pop. And I thought what had happened was I thought he was having this moment of like, "Oh crap, I'm a chubby 40-year-old. Like I just threw up after playing basketball." Like honestly, that's what went through my head. And so I get off the bed and I think I'm just going in to literally say, "Sheldon, you're amazing." And what I didn't know is he had had a massive heart attack, and that noise I heard was him. He had collapsed. And so as you can imagine, but I thought he just passed out, because getting in I wasn't like a cold shower, but whatever. So I'm like, "Mom." So I jump in the shower and I'm like I'm like, Sheldon, like, "Wake up." So I get out and I'm like, "Mom, I think you need to call 911. It's bad." Mind you, before we went on the cruise, Sheldon kind of had this like sick sense of humor. And Sheldon literally was saying to people, "You guys, do you know there's a morgue on ships? Do you know that an average of 2 people die per cruise?" And everybody'd be like, "Sheldon, that's really weird information." And he just was kind of like that. So again, it was one of those like messages, I guess. So anyway, I say, "Mom, you need to call 911. It's bad." And I end up grabbing the 2 little kids and like flinging them out into the hallway. And I was like, "Go knock on doors until someone comes." And I screamed this scream for help that was I think it was deeper than primal, if that's a thing. I like screamed, "Help, help." Like it was so raw and it was so loud that like my throat literally hurt for the week after he died. It was everything I could do. And then I went back and I was going to jump on him again to try to save him. And I'm not aware of this stuff at the time, but I now have these words. It was like felt like there was almost like a force field keeping me from getting to him. And he was, I hope this isn't too graphic, but he actually, so like the first time when I went in, he was fully like, just, it looked like he passed out. The second time I went to like save him, he was actually had his hands kind of clenched like this, and he was clenching his jaw, but it looked like whenever I do get to see him again, I'm going to be like, "I know you were trying to stay." Like, it was like he was trying to hang on, like, and in my spirit, and I'm not kidding, I would tell people afterwards, I'm like, I felt like I could hear him. I felt like I heard him, and I felt like he was saying, like, "Shit, babe, shit, like, excuse my language, but that's what happened. And he looked beautiful, you guys. He didn't look scared. He looked like a man that was fighting to stay. And then a man that was like ready to go to where he was going. And this part is so amazing to me, what happened next, because it just happened. It's like that moment happened and he was gone. And it's like, I knew he was gone. And at that time, I felt this like feeling, like this burst inside of my chest. And the way I tell the story always, like I'm telling you now, I say to people, as I'm saying to you, I felt something burst in my chest. And it's like an internal message was, I'm never going to be the same. But it wasn't no, I'm never good. It was more like a steadiness. And so all of a sudden, like the medics, my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, they're in and they're trying to get him. And just by the nature of how many people came into the room, and it's a tiny bathroom on a cruise, I end up in the hallway. And the first thing I do, and none of this is conscience, by the way. The first thing I do is I drop to my knees and I just put my hands out and I just literally started saying, our life is in your hands, God. Our life is in your hands. Our life is in your hands, God. Our life is in your hands. And the next thing I know, all these people come whooshing down the hallway. I mean, it's, as you can imagine, chaos. And I end up sitting next to the wall. I mean, I'm in my swimsuit top and like beach pants, and I'm just like sitting there. I'd been at the pool. Where had I been? No, I'd been in the shower, but we had been at the out. So I was wet because I'd been in the shower. And I'm just kind of sitting there huddled, like, as you can imagine, and my knees are up to my chest. And there's this woman standing next to me, and she was like a crew member, and she was from the Philippines, and she's just standing there stoic, but almost like, I don't know the female word for centurion, but like she was there. And it was crazy because she would have these tears that would just like almost calculated fall from her face. It was wild. I was so aware of that. And I kept looking up at her, and I was like, are they life-flighting him? Are they life-flighting him? Are they life? And she just would look down at me like with kindness. And then my mother-in-law is sitting next to me, and I looked at her and I was like, it's bad stuff, isn't it? She's like, Sarah, this is bad. And the next thing I know, the doctor comes out, and it's like I knew. Oh no, as I'm remembering this, so when I'm sitting by this woman before Stephanie got here, I had this sensation come over me. And the way I describe it is like if humans had like feathers on their arms, I felt like something came over me like this, like a surrounding sort of feeling. And to me, that what I said out loud but quietly, I was like, I felt like it was Sheldon, like his spirit, like coming around me. And I was like, you're leaving, aren't you? I was like, you're leaving. And yeah, it's wild. It's wild to kind of revisit it like this, which to me is amazing because like nobody physically is sitting here right now, so I don't have to worry about their feelings with me crying. Isn't that amazing? Just the freedom. So here we are, the doctor comes out, and an interesting thing on a cruise, I've only been on one, and I actually didn't love it anyway. Like I even said to Sheldon before he died, I was like, I don't think I would do this again. I was thankful, that for Stephanie and Spencer taking us, but not my jam. But anyway, an interesting thing is every crew member wears their like country of origin. And Sheldon was Portuguese, and he's from a Portuguese town in California. So this isn't just culture. It's like culture and upbringing, and like it's everything. So anyway, the doctor bends down, and I look on his thing, and he's Portuguese. So I actually think I might have giggled a little bit inside. And this was really interesting. So the doctor's bending down, and he's going like this. He's like, he didn't make it. He didn't make it. And for whatever reason, the only words I have is I was really protective of how I was being seen. Not like I was protective of being seen, but for whatever reason, it's like I had this awareness that I was like, I'm not out of my mind. I'm right here with you. So anyway, kept pointing to his head. He's like, he didn't make it. And I said, I'm here. I said, I can hear you. And I said, why do you keep pointing to your head, but you keep, like you're saying he had a heart attack, but you're pointing to your head? And then the doctor kind of looked at me and went, oh, he was gone. He was gone when we got here. His pupils were fully dilated. What he was saying was he was brain dead already. And back up in Sheldon's life, in September before my dad passed away, Sheldon had this moment with me. Part of Sheldon's journey was like walking and learning about his own mental health with anxiety and ADHD and stuff. So mental health and all of that stuff has always been a part of my life, and then mine and Sheldon's life and stuff. And so in September, we had gotten in this argument, Sheldon and I did, and then it started to seem like I didn't know what we were arguing about. And normally you can kind of stop, And then at one point I said, Sheldon, I don't even know what's going on anymore. Mind you, this is back in September. And you guys, it was crazy. He looked at me and he got really weepy. And he said, babe, my mind scares me sometimes. And I was like, honey, you're okay. You're okay. Everything's okay. So anyway, when the doctor told me that Sheldon didn't make it, but that his mind was already gone by the time they had gotten there, I am not kidding you. I had this experience. I didn't have the words again then, but I had this experience that the minute the doctor said that, I always tell the story like this. If Peter Pan was real and Tinkerbell and the fairy dust was real, the first breath that I took in when I learned that Sheldon didn't make it, because the doctor said, oh, his mind was gone by the time we got here, I went, oh. And my first conscious thought, it was like that gold fairy dust tucked into the pocket of my heart. And it was like, oh, he didn't have to lose his mind. So in this some way, I had this awareness about me that wasn't, later in therapy, of course, I worked through, like, I didn't do the big movie scream. No, Sheldon, don't go. And I had to work through like, would he have stayed? Would he have stayed if he would have heard me, and I have my own journey with that. But, so then the next thing I know, I'm having to go into my brother-in-law and sister-in-law's room and tell my kids that their dad didn't make it. And so I walk into the room, and mind you, my dad's mom died when he was 6 years old. And our youngest son was 6 when Sheldon died. And I don't think my dad ever really healed of losing his mom so young. And in the 50s, it's like we weren't talking. Like, it's 2025 and I'm doing this. This wasn't around back then. And so anyway, I walk into the room and I tell the kids, I said, you guys, it's bad. And my oldest son, Scout, said, well, he didn't die, did he? And all I could do is cover my mouth and just say yes. And for whatever reason, I locked on, not to Cash. I mean, I'm aware of all of my kids in the room. I don't feel like I want to tell their part, because I just feel like that's personal for them. But in regards to Cash being the same age as my dad, like, something in me locked in to, essentially it was this message of, well, I know how this won't end. And it was like somewhere from the very get-go, I don't know, I knew that I was going to do everything I could and give us every opportunity to heal. Because what I would say is the God that I knew and the God of my understanding, our story doesn't stop because the dad died and the husband died and the pastor died. Like, that's not the God who I know. Like, the God that I know has beauty for ashes, and that is true to me. And so, as you can imagine, things are just chaos. And the way I want to close out this part of the journey is just telling you the story of that first night, that a really amazing experience that I had that I know set me onto the path that I'm on now. So there we are, going to bed the first night after, those of you that have walked through this, isn't it? Whether if it was, you knew that this day was coming, or whether it was sudden death, it is so unreal. It is so unreal that someone can be on the planet one breath and then gone the next. That's for another day. But the way the cruise worked in our room was you had 2 beds above the bed. Like, you have a bed here and then 2 beds here. The big boys are up here, and Ruby, Love, and Cash are, I'm holding them. And we're all just crying. Like, can you even imagine? Like, as I'm telling you this, I'm like, I cannot believe we all had to go through this. And the boys are crying, I'm crying, the littles are bawling. And suddenly I feel like I'm in hell. Literally. I'm just, when you just start and you're like, suffer, like, but you're the mom. So I'm like, I'm not laughing to deflect. I'm like, this is just absolute chaos and unimaginable pain. And kind of the way that I'm wired, I've always felt like I've had God close to me. And I've always felt like inside I've had this like internal message, I guess. And so I'm laying there and the boys are here, the kids are here, and I'm kind of starting to lose my crap too. And I'm waiting. And it's kind of the way I describe it is like I feel like I almost go inside myself to be like, and I'm waiting for like that voice, like that voice that's going to anchor me, that voice that's going to say something, like that voice that I've had since the beginning of time. And then I realize there's no voice, there's no message, there's no mantra, there's no anchoring. And suddenly I'm kind of ticked. And then I kind of go out of myself and I'm like, I'm back in this chaos. And it's like when I say, like I said to God, it's like in my spirit. And I'm laying there and I say, like in my mind's eye, I'm like, you can't have this happen and not say anything to me, God. You have to say something. Like it was like I was begging, like this, pleading, like, I can't do this alone. Like, I don't even know what just happened. And I'm laying there. And then I start, like, I realize like nothing's happening. And then I literally said inside, I'm like, just one word, God. Just one word. Like, you have to say something. Give me something. Like, you have to say something. Just one word. And clear as day, I hear this next message. This will not break you. You were bred for battle. And just like that, it's like in my mind's eye, mind you, I see what we would call like a DNA strand. That like I see this like strand like coming to get downloaded into me. And I'm not kidding you. It's like Sheldon's memorial was not a typical memorial at all. And it's because his memorial is what I saw downloaded to me that day. So if you were at his memorial or you witnessed his memorial, and I think we'll probably have a link to his memorial in this episode or somewhere, because it was very unique. And people would go, oh my gosh, that was so amazing. No, I've never been anything like that. I was like, I wouldn't take the time to describe it. Oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe it. Because it was so non-traditional, but it's exactly what it was supposed to be. And I'm so thankful that that's the way that we got to celebrate his life. And so, isn't that crazy? Like, there's no other words. Like, that is what happened. So, I'm not even going to try. There's no way to button this up. It's kind of crazy to get to share it like this, you guys. Like, oftentimes there'll be somebody in the room and they're like, you just kind of stare at them and be like, no way. It's like, I know. But that's what happened. So I do know how to, this just came to me. When I woke up that next morning, I've said it before in another episode, there's that nanosecond in time. I'm sure you've had it before if you're here or you've heard people say it. You wake up and you have this blip of a moment where you don't know if what happened was a nightmare or if it really happened. So I had that. It's like the worst. And I wake up and I look at my mom and I say, Mom, my husband. And she just looks at me just with only the way that another human being that's been through this can look at you. It's not pity. I don't know even what to call it. It's something amazing. I don't even know what to call it. But my mom looked at me with that look and she said, I know, honey, and I'm only 5 months ahead of you. And I cannot tell you how, but I can tell you this. It gets better. And I know this is so hard and it's going to be hard, but I promise you, it's going to get better. So I hope you keep coming back. Thank you for letting me share that with you. And I can't wait for you to share your story with me and so many others. And I hope you keep coming back, because it does get better. Thanks for being here. All right, before we go, if Discover Hope has helped you or encouraged you at all, I wanted to invite you to be a part of the bigger picture. One way you could do that would be by subscribing, liking, or sharing any of the episodes with someone you think might benefit from it, or even on your social media platforms. Another way you could do this, if you'd like to make a donation or even sponsor an episode on behalf of someone you love, you can do that by clicking the link to discoverhope.org below, or you can head on over to our website where you can make donations there, or also sponsor at discoverhope.org. You guys, thank you for being a part of this. It's a dream come true. And I truly believe that we are giving grief a language and making room for an abundant amount of hope. Thanks so much.